Hi, this is Sonja Nicole. I want to tell you something about the theory that we've been believing for so long, that all life came out of Africa. Created by Christopher Stringer, who was a white supremacist. Now, it's based on the one drop of black blood rule that was created by Walter Ashby Plecker, who was the first one to record vital statistics, and it was done in Virginia. This was the time when it was the early 1900s, and most of our families started moving north. A lot of people were trying to escape him because of our people at that time were called mulatto. They were called, and that wasn't because of being half black and half white. That was because of being, like I would have been called a bushy-haired mulatto. You know, bushy-haired brown complexion mulatto. Or you could have been a bushy-haired dark mulatto. Or you could have been a mulatto who looked more like you were European. Whoever could pass for European went in one direction and passed for European. Whoever could pass, whoever couldn't, went in another direction. There was many things happened to put our people in this situation. We did not come here on slave ships from Africa. That is an old story glorified by an oppressor to enslave the mind of a people to make them believe that they cannot go but so high or so far. You know, like you were running around in the woods or something. Yeah, you were running around in the woods, but they were about like 6 years old or so and got kidnapped and sold and enslaved. Okay? That's why when you do your genealogy, it only goes back maybe just a few generations to a great-great-great-grandmother, and you can't find her parents. Okay, you're not going to find her parents. And then they'll tell you, oh no, that's because when we brought them here as slaves, we just made tick marks in it. Don't believe these lies, please. Because your DNA test will back up exactly what I'm saying if you're paying attention to the conservative view, not the speculative view, but your conservative view. And when you see that, that's when you'll see that you have at least 50% or greater DNA that cannot be found anywhere except for right here. This is why a lot of these tribes that were called Native American, they're not testing DNA. They don't want to go by that. They want to go by your Dawes rolls and things like that. Those things, those paperworks that they didn't allow you to be a part of if you were a dark complexion or indigenous person, because they wanted to take the land. But yet if you were European, you could pay $5 and be listed on these things as Native American. So this right now today, you know, they're able to get compensation just because they have an ancestor who was part of that scam. Okay? Now, everyone who was here, who was indigenous, now you may say black, I say indigenous. And I say indigenous instead of saying black because I know that black is what Walter Plecker replaced your nationality with when he removed what you really called yourself. He replaced it with a color code that puts you under the 14th Amendment as property. Okay, and as property, what they're allowed to use on you is the color of law. And colorable law is what is law that is not real. Okay, so that's why the Constitution will not apply to you. There's certain people that have gone and tried to bring up the Constitution, and they were ready to lock them up for it. Because you can't be black and bring up a Constitution. You can't be white and bring up a Constitution. You know, you have no nationality. You have no people. You're a stateless person, okay? And you're property. Now, we all know that the indigenous people each and every one of us is, okay, I'm not going to go into the whole thing, you know, regarding who you are, as far as your, okay, don't mind me. I'm just, I'm trying to give you as much information as I possibly can, but there's certain things that I know people are just not ready for, and I'm not going to go into those areas until I feel that it's a need to, or I should. Some things are pretty underground that people don't know about, you know, and they're doing themselves an injustice by trying to just demonize other people who are doing things, or people think that we're all the same, and we're not. We're all indigenous. We all come from one DNA. Now, the reason why you can have a DNA test and it'll tell you that you have this large percentage from a country in Africa is because it goes along with the Racial Integrity Act of 1924 that Walter Plecker created. Okay, the whole one drop of black blood thing. You couldn't have one drop of black blood. Now, they didn't have DNA tests at that time. What they did was look at you and say, okay, you're brown, you're black. And that's it. It didn't matter. You could have been from Puerto Rico. You could have been from anywhere. Okay, why is it that people who are Asian, okay, get to be called Japanese, Caucasian, Cambodian, Indian, all of these other nationalities that have to do with Asia? They all have the same phenotype, okay? They have the straight hair, and they have well, they don't have you know, they're kind of flat, and but or they're petite build, and you know, some of them are, but when you come to us, we are all in these locations where these people came about, but we are all, no matter how much these people look like us, we are all considered to be slaves brought from Africa. They're trying to convince the people in India, they've brought people from Africa to India to convince them that they are slaves from Africa, or they're descendants of slaves from Africa. Okay? And they don't know. They're telling them they came from some part of Kenya or something. I saw a documentary. I was so, like, just you know, taken aback by this information, because these people are home. These people are home. They said that there's a worldwide Negro problem. Okay? We're not Negroes. A Negro is what they create. A Negro is what they create when they come to your country and they tell you that you are not indigenous to where you are, that you are a descendant of an African slave. Now you've become a Negro, right? Now, in Spanish, negro means black, right? A Negro is created. The color of law is what a Negro is dealt with. It's how they deal with you when you're a Negro. I'm not preaching any separation. I'm preaching just the opposite. But if your mind is so closed that you can't see it, then that's your problem, because many people see it. And then there's a lot of people who just don't care. But you should. And the reason why is because, you know how they say, do you believe in reincarnation? You have no choice but to believe in reincarnation, because the gene is immortal, and science proves that. The gene is immortal. If the gene was not immortal, then you wouldn't look like any of your parents. You wouldn't walk like any of them. You wouldn't sound like them or anything like that. You wouldn't have anything that is similar to anyone in your family. In fact, your mother could give birth to a goat and not a human if the gene was not immortal. Okay? You can't cross gene pools. You would never know what you're going to get. Our ancestors come through us. Now, this is not about ancestral worship, if that's what you're thinking. If you're, religious or something, and you're thinking that. It's not about that. This has to do with science, what I'm telling you, and the fact that cyanobacteria created life wherever there was an ecosystem. That's all that was required for life. So the vegetation was here way before humanity came, way before the indigenous people came. Now, if that came about everywhere on the planet, how could the food come about everywhere on the planet, but the people only came in one location? Okay, first they told you that, oh, all life started in East Africa. And then now they're telling you, oh, it was North Africa too. Why do you keep going through this stuff with these people? I mean, why can't you see that what happens here is this gives people rights to Africa who otherwise would not have rights to Africa and Africa's resources. It also gives them the right to exterminate indigenous people in other places because they become a stateless people because they don't know who they are. So when they say they're African, why is it that when an indigenous person goes and gets incarcerated, how come they don't deport you back to Africa? If you're Jamaican, they deport you back to Jamaica. If you're African, they deport you back to Africa. If you're a person from America who's indigenous to America, who doesn't believe that they are because these people have bombarded you with a phenotype and an image that looks like them, that looks more European, because most of the indigenous tribes or so-called indigenous tribes in America today that they call Indians are more European than they are indigenous to America. They may have a small percentage, and they won't DNA test because they don't want any black, so-called black people being a part of that tribe, because they stopped that a long time ago. And they've also become very racist as well. And the reason why is because they're European. They paid $5 to get on the Dawes rolls and to get recorded as that. So they're like, oh no, we don't want to do DNA tests. We want to go by record. Do you have an ancestor who is on the Dawes rolls or this and that? Oh, sure I do. But you know what? All of my ancestors came from Europe, but we were on that Dawes roll. So now I get to get benefits here now because I'm so-called Native American now. It's really crazy. And most black people, or so-called black people rather, are on this back to Africa thing. Africans know you're not African. Okay, African American is an African who is from, and they'll tell you, they don't even call themselves African. They'll tell you they're Cameroonian, they're Nigerian, they're, whatever. Whatever country they come from is how they identify themselves. The only people who do not identify themselves in that way, as far as what I see, is the so-called black person in America. And then they want to take that name, that title that they were given, and they want to hold it for dear life because there's nothing else to believe in. And that title is what makes them property, voluntarily property. That title and their decision to ignore the laws that govern them and to ignore the truth in those laws that govern them, because they always think that, oh, they can just do whatever they want to do. And that's not true. It's not true at all. It's just what you think because you feel powerless. Okay? There are some of us out there who are not powerless in that way. And we know better, and we know how to deal with things when it comes to dealing with law. I'm not going to let you legally, in law, okay, deal with me as property, as a 14th Amendment citizen. I'm not going to do that. I corrected my status. you have to correct your status. If you don't know how to correct your status, then ask some questions. If you come across someone who wants to sell you some paperwork, run, okay? Run. There are more people out there. There's no reason to, deal with someone who we consider to be a dirty Moor, okay? And the reason why we say Moor anyway is because that's what we were known as. If you were indigenous, that's what you were called. They called you Moor, they called you Blackamoor. There's even a treaty. I'm not going to get into all of that because I know as soon as you say Moor to a lot of people, people get crazy. And they have negative things to say or whatever because they don't know certain things. Or all they know is dirty Moors, but dirty black people too. So it just doesn't make any sense for you to be struggling to make something yours that was meant to crush you, that was meant to commit genocide upon you and to remove you from your land, okay? In fact, you're worth more dead than you are alive. If you don't correct your status, then that's what you are. You're worth more dead than you are alive. I'm not going to get into why and all the particulars of that, but you need to start searching and asking some questions and finding out some information. Really, time is of the essence. This stuff is really, it's imperative that you learn that ignorance of the law is no excuse on either side. There are people there who are protecting things for people because they've been trained to do things a certain way, and they actually believe that what they're doing is right. And they believe that this is how it's supposed to go. Now, I want you to go and find out what it means to have liberty. And then I want you to ask yourself, do you have it? And then I want you to know that you don't have it because of your status. Now, collectively, what you call yourself, among each other, big deal. But what I'm saying is that when you deal with things on paper, when you allow the people in the media to call you by a color and put you under the color of law, that's why you're being looked at as a criminal. Black means criminal. Okay? That's what it means to them. On paper. If you go and read the Racial Integrity Act of 1924, then you'll understand better what I'm talking about. Read up on Dr. Walter Ashby Plecker, okay? Check out Christopher Stringer, who is the one who told you that you were all from Africa when you were not. If you pay attention to these things, you'll see that the DNA tests, these things are just by your consent. Now, the Racial Integrity Act of 1924, it ended. They threw it out. But you're still calling yourself what they labeled you. So it's still applying to you. Okay? And there's some very harsh things in there that you wouldn't like if you saw it. And if you read it, you'll say, yeah, this is still going on right now. Oh, they do what they want to do. Yeah, with your consent. But you don't understand that these are all contracts that you're making. And this is all by your consent and by your ignorance of law. How could you even be a person? You could be a doctor, you could be a lawyer, you could be, you could be rich or poor. It doesn't matter. And you'll still be under the color of law because of your ignorance. Okay? Your ignorance to the laws and the rules that govern you as a person. It makes no sense. If you're going to be that ignorant, why bring children into this world and have them become ignorant and subject to oppression and mistreatment and all of these things as well? Your money's only going to go but so far. You may buy your way out of a lot of things. But the problem is that without your status being corrected, you're still nothing. You haven't accomplished anything. And only, time will tell what type of environment, when you're gone, you'll be leaving for your children. This is something that people are always trying to come together and look for a leader to take them in this direction or that direction, or change this and do that. And it's not going to happen. You have to do this for yourself. There's no one else who can do this for you. You have to change your own status. If you don't know, start studying. You know how they say when the student is ready, the teacher will appear? That's all you have to do. Just start studying. Just start caring about yourself enough to do this. You have a bunch of corporations that are extracting revenues from you in so many different directions. Okay? You're keeping a lot of people eating lovely while you're struggling for no reason. For no reason. Seriously. Okay? I don't want to, and I'm not going to, come down or say anything bad about anybody's religion, because I don't disrespect people in their religion or religious beliefs. I just know that this has nothing to do with your religion. This has nothing to do with you being tried, okay? It has nothing to do with that. This has something to do with you being blind to law, okay? Blind to law. So it's like what's happening is that you're just floating through, and you're just taking whatever punch is dealt to you from people who don't have it together themselves. You're taking this from people who are in certain positions that they probably shouldn't even be in, in just, pseudo courts that you think are real courts. And the reason why is because you don't know how to deal with it. You don't know what to do. And you think that this is just the way it goes. Find out what liberty means and what it is to you. You have a right to liberty. And if your liberty is constantly being trampled on, it's because you're black or white. Okay, it's because you accept these titles, first and foremost, and that puts you under the 14th Amendment as property. And the Constitution does not apply to you. So you have no constitutional rights, and they will do whatever they want to do with you. And they know what they're doing, but their, should I say, gatekeepers who deal with you may not know. They're just following the rules. And this goes back to, like I said, that child that was stolen and indoctrinated with different beliefs. And then they made more children who were indoctrinated with beliefs. And the whole spare the rod, spoil the child situation as well came from there. When we think of our parents, or, somewhere along the line there was some parents that were super strict or super, disciplinarian types. And some of you will even say that you probably will say you hate those parents, or that grandmother or whatever. You have to understand where she came from or he came from. Okay, you have to understand, even right down to the situation where there are men who have children and run. You have to understand what took place. Do you know there was a time in the 1900s, the early 1900s, or 1800s, I'm sorry, may have even been the 1700s. Well, first of all, I want to say in the 1700s, there were people here who were married to each other who the wife might have been Caucasian and the husband was indigenous, okay? This slavery thing didn't happen it didn't take place for 400 years. That's a lie, okay? This is something that took place somewhere in the 1800s. I have traced these things back, and I've used my resources spiritually to find this information and trace these things back. And I was led to so many different things. There was a time when, now you'll say, okay, Caucasian people don't support black businesses. They won't buy nothing from us. Well, there was a time when they had a $1,000 fine placed on them if they did. Okay? All of the ports that we controlled as Moors, all of the trade and all of the business we were doing, everything got snatched from us. You remember Black Wall Street. I don't have to tell you that. You remember Haytide. I don't have to tell you these things. Okay? There's no way that some slaves could get free. You couldn't read, and then all of a sudden you go into having a Black Wall Street. And right now, today, we have all of these super highly educated people, and they can't seem to get it together. Come on now. This stuff, this deprogramming of your natural state of being took place in the 1800s. There was a lot of things that took place, just harassment, a lot more laws, statutes and codes and things placed upon you. I can guarantee you that every negative statute, code, law, everything that is, punishment that is out there was based on this whole slave thing and the freeing, or so-called freeing of the slaves, where they actually enslaved everybody who's a color. Okay? And then they have these colors fighting at each other, okay? While they're sitting back laughing, collecting revenues off of both of you. Okay? You don't have to be, kumbaya with each other, for real. I'm just saying. This is something that, this one's blaming that one and that one's blaming this one, and it's like neither one of you are the one that is actually, conducting this. You're both struggling. You're both going through all kinds of shit. Just where you see that they're killing indigenous people, they're killing a lot of Caucasians too. But we don't acknowledge that, and they don't acknowledge that with us. There was a time before when we actually worked together for the betterment of just our environment, period. Now, the person I would say who has the best information on that is Tim Wise. He does some really good lectures on that issue of what really took place. You need to correct your status and correct the status of your children as well. And you need to put that on record where you live at. If you don't know how to do it, you need to start asking people some questions. Don't be, too shy or too proud to ask questions. So, it'll get you a lot further. And first and foremost, what you're looking for is safety for yourself and your children. I'm sure you didn't bring your children into this world for, anything to take place with them that you wouldn't approve of. So, I'm going to stop right here. I think I already went through what I wanted to say to you, because the main thing that I wanted to talk about was the fact that life was created wherever there was an ecosystem. That we all came from out of Africa theory is bullshit. Okay? Peace.